I contend that almost every business has a percentage of their customers that would do 10 times more business with them or 100 times more business with them.
Totally.
If they narrowed their focus to serving them and figuring out what else they need.
All right. John, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you. For folks who don't know you, and I think that would be a very short list, you're the author of Duct Tape Marketing. That's probably your most well-known book, but you're the author of many different books. And you're someone I highly respect in the marketing space. You've been doing this for a very long time. I remember maybe 15 years ago driving in my car listening to Duct Tape Marketing thinking, this is awesome. And so it's so good to have you on the show and so good to have you in our world. John, tell us about yourself and anything I've missed, anything I've got wrong.
I actually have been doing this for 30 years, but I created really the duct tape brand in early 2000 or so. I had built a traditional agency before that. I was working with small to mid-sized businesses. Frankly, to tell you the truth, I was taking any work I could get, like a lot of folks. But I found I loved working with small business owners, but they were kind of frustrating. They needed everything and didn't have the budgets or attention spans for it. So what I decided to do to solve my frustration really was create an approach where I could walk in and say, look, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here are the results we hope to get. Here's what it costs. Do you want it or not? And quickly found out that I actually was tapping into what is still today one of the greatest frustrations for small businesses. It's hard to buy marketing services. Changing rapidly. Everybody's selling the idea of the week. You don't know who to trust. And so the fact that somebody said, look, we're going to come in and we're going to install a marketing system and it's going to start with strategy, would create an approach where I could walk in and say, look, here's what I'm going to do. And really for the last 10 years or so, in addition to having an agency, we've also licensed our methodology that we now call Fractional CMO Plus to agencies around the world and consultants. I mean, anybody who's working with business owners who wants to really be seen as a much more strategy forward practitioner.
I love that. And I love that you've always taken a very practical approach. I mean, there are many people in the marketing space who have a lot of cool theories, a lot of cool books, a lot of cool ideas, but you take a very practical approach. You're like, okay, let's get this done. And with that in mind, you and I were chatting just earlier. We've probably got similar approaches, but I think we take it from different angles. So a small business comes to you, maybe they're doing $500,000 to $1 million, $2 million in revenue or more. But a typical scenario is that it's grown based on the founder's hustle, right? There's been no real marketing systems. There's been no one really waking up in the morning thinking about marketing. How would you approach that? What would your recommendations be to really help them? Because often they've plateaued at that level. They've gotten to the ceiling where they can get to based on their own hustle and pushing. So how would you approach that, John?
Yeah, that's exactly the scenario we found quite often. I mean, I've run into $10 million businesses where it's just the founder was just good at selling what they do, but they didn't really understand marketing. They didn't really appreciate marketing. They certainly didn't have a formal approach to all of the aspects of marketing, but they have realized, hey, we've plateaued. Yeah. We believe now to go to the next level. And it's not just marketing strategy. Sometimes it's just business or growth strategy. What new markets should we be in, or what new products should we develop? So what I think that we end up doing is helping focus their thinking. The first thing we try to do is help them understand how they got to where they got. A lot of times really they don't appreciate the top 20% of their customer base that they should be focusing more attention on. They're talking about themselves and their products as opposed to really getting in the head of the customer and figuring out what problem they solve for them. They think of marketing as lead generation, getting the phone to ring, as opposed to the process of creating a great experience for that person that does come in, who then stays a customer, who then tells their friends to become a customer. So the entire customer journey. And I think, at that point, then you can start thinking about what are the channels we should be playing in, and maybe what should we be ignoring? If you've got limited time and limited budget, sometimes it's just not chasing every new channel or every new approach is the way to kind of keep your sanity.
I love that you say that, because one of the things that I noticed, and I've got this in my new book, Lean Marketing, is that the best and most sophisticated marketers, one of the most surprising thing that I've seen is their not to-do list rather than their to-do list. Every marketing book, every program, every YouTube, every video tells you to do more and more and more and more, right? But when I look at some of the best marketers in the world, they're actually got a very short list of the stuff they're actually doing, and the list of the stuff they're not doing is very long. So having that focused approach on the things that actually work is a huge game changer for a lot of businesses, because I don't know about you, but a lot of the business owners I encounter are just overwhelmed. They're like, I've got to be doing social, I've got to be doing Instagram, I've got to be doing TikTok, then some new channel, then blogs, and all of this sort of stuff. How do you go about really focusing in on what's the 80-20? What's the stuff that's going to give you the biggest impact?
Well, the first part is narrowing their focus. Quite often they're trying to serve everybody with no very specific message. Just, I don't know, if you need remodeling, if you need accounting, that's what we sell, right? As opposed to really digging in and figuring out what are our most profitable engagements? What are our most profitable types of clients? What are the clients that we love working with? What are the clients that refer us because they have a great experience? Once we can understand everything about them, and quite often that's what got them to where they are today, we can actually start talking specifically to them, and maybe at the elimination of everything else. Because what we've found is that if we can get very specific about, here's the specific problem I solve for a specific person in a specific way, we're going to start attracting more of those ideal customers. But the other thing I think it really allows us to do is then we can start focusing on what else could we do for them. I contend that almost every business has a percentage of their customers that would do 10 times more business with them or 100 times more business with them.
Totally.
If they narrowed their focus to serving them and figuring out what else they need.
Yeah. One of the ways I get my clients to visualize this, I say, look, and sometimes not even just visualize it, not even imagine it, actually do it. But I say, take all of your customers from, export them out of whatever your accounting system or your CRM or whatever, sort them from best to worst in a spreadsheet, right? And you'll find that the bulk of your revenue, the bulk of your goodwill is all with that top maybe 10, 20%. And the bulk of your headaches is right at the bottom. The customers that you hate working with, that pay the least, that pay late, that are difficult to work with, always want to speak to the CEO, all of those sorts of things. And if we can just take all the huge resources we're using to service those suboptimal customers and go for more, that's going to be a game changer for the business. And that is a game changer for many businesses. It's just really doubling down on ideal customers.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave that last point. There's most businesses that bottom 10 to 15%, they're probably losing money on. And guess who's writing the one-star reviews? It's those folks too. So, I mean, just eliminate that from your business altogether.
Yeah. Okay. So practically, let's say you've worked with a client, you've identified their ideal customer. We've gone from working with everyone, which a lot of people do. And it's so difficult for a lot of business owners to fathom that, hey, I want to narrow my focus. It feels natural that, hey, if we want more business, we want more revenue, we're going to widen the net, right? But what we're actually saying is, no, we want to narrow your focus. We want to go for these ideal kind of clients. So with the day-to-day marketing implementation, how do you go about that with your clients and people that you work with? How do you, all right, we've agreed that such and such is our ideal client. We want more of those. How do we go about getting those?
Yeah. First, I want to acknowledge that I get it. It's tough. I mean, I still today, somebody will dangle a project in front of me that I know is not right, that we have to figure out how to do it even to make money on it. And I'm still tempted. So I want to acknowledge that. I get it. But the next step that we do, once we've identified who we think that is, I mean, let's really find out what they value. What problem do we really solve for them? Because a lot of times we either underestimate or don't fully understand. They came to us because they weren't getting X from somebody else. An example I love to give all the time is we had a tree service and they're promoting how great they were at cutting down trees. And we interviewed their customers and their customers all said, they have a chainsaw and a truck. We figured they could cut a tree down. But what we love is that when they tell us they're going to be here at 1 to quote the job or whatever, they're there. They show up on time. And then at the end of the day, they clean up the job site thoroughly. And that's ultimately the problem that they were solving for their best clients. And so recognizing the things that our clients really value and then communicating, promising to solve that problem for other people, that's how you really start attracting more of that ideal customer.
Yeah, I call that doing the common thing uncommonly well, right? Because in most services and in most industries, the main thing that you do is relatively undifferentiated. Like if I think of myself, I've switched accountants in my career maybe 3-4 times, and it's never been because they've been a bad accountant or they did something wrong with the tax code. And most accountants are working with the same tax code. They've got relatively the same bag of tricks for legally minimizing tax. So they're relatively undifferentiated. It's been the common things that have made me switch accountants. There's things like returning phone calls, being proactive, responding to emails, all of those sorts of things. So often it's these common things that make the switching trigger between someone. So a lot of people feel like they've got to invent something huge or brand new or whatever, and very rarely is that the thing that makes people buy or switch to suppliers.
In fact, it goes beyond that switching. I read a recent survey of B2B businesses, and 86% of them said they'd pay more for a better experience. So it's not just the better experience makes me switch. It's like, I will pay you more if I believe I'll get a better experience. And so that alone makes focusing on that experience, or as you call it, doing the common things uncommonly. And I think most business owners kind of underestimate the value of that, because I think a lot of times people who are wired to provide good service, it's their values and they just believe that's what you do. And so the idea that would be a differentiator is kind of odd.
Yeah. So with practical implementation, where do you recommend someone starts where they've got no IT department? So a similar scenario to what we were talking earlier. We're a business owner, we're doing maybe a couple of million in revenue. We've gotten there just because you're a hustler and you push every day and you're making the sales and doing the deals. But now we've kind of hit a growth plateau. We know we need to invest in marketing. Where do we go from here?
If we've taken the time to do strategy, a couple of things, we've now refined who our ideal client is. So we want to make sure that we're talking to them. We've refined our message. And so we want to make sure that we're communicating that point of differentiation. So for most businesses, it's going to start with a little trip to tidying up the website and making sure we're getting that message said correctly. And we're identifying, here's who we work with. There are many other factors that should go on that website, that homepage, but that's certainly a place we're going to start, because we want to tell the new story. Then we will immediately drop into other forms of content. If we're going to educate our customer on who we are and how we're different and who we serve today, like it or not, that involves a lot of content through blog posts or podcasts or videos or all the various ways that we can do it, so that we start building assets that we can use with prospects, but also certainly that the search engines, and even if we're going to run paid ads, we're driving people to things that are going to actually convert for us because they're telling the right story.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few things. So already I can feel business owners' blood pressure rising. They're like, okay, I've got to change my website. I've got to start doing content marketing. I've got to do all of these things. Who's doing this? Like, is the business owner doing this? Are they finding an agency? Are they hiring someone? Who do they hire? Like, how do I get these things done?
So there's a lot of possible scenarios. Rarely is it profitable or wise for the business owner to try to take the time to figure out how to do those tasks. There are people that are better at it, that the business owner's time should be spent developing relationships, selling, maybe fulfilling, doing all the things that really make money ultimately, or frankly, that they're the best at doing, and really outsourcing almost everything else, frankly. So that could be hiring people. But again, one of the challenges there is if you don't fully understand some of the nuances or even some of the changes in marketing, it's difficult to hire effectively, and certainly difficult to manage that person if you're not really sure what you need them to do as well. So one of the best approaches is really to hire. Maybe it's an agency, but again, if I were going to advise you, it certainly would be, I would not be talking to anybody about marketing who is coming in selling tactics. You need to be doing Facebook ads, or you need to be on TikTok now. Hire somebody or find somebody that can become a trusted advisor, that can advocate for your customers, that can help you build marketing strategy, and they can either then orchestrate on the plan or manage the folks, that partners or freelancers or whatever it is that might actually be the best suited to do the work.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to underline something that you just said, which is the business owner is often not the perfect person to do the implementation for a couple of reasons. So to borrow a term from Gino Wickman, often people fall into either an integrator or a visionary type of category. And most entrepreneurs tend to be visionaries, meaning we're good at the big picture stuff. We're good at the ideas, the product development, all of that. We're not so good at the day-to-day implementation, which is where you really need an integrator. And in this case, really a marketing integrator, because the personalities of most entrepreneurs, they usually get bored very easily. They get distracted very easily. They're also very busy people, generally not the ideal people. So you really need someone who wakes up in the morning and thinks about, okay, what are we going to do from a marketing perspective today? Has that been your experience, John, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. And, a lot of times if you just sit down and do some math, and as a business owner, should probably, for my business to make any profit and for me to actually take home a paycheck, my effective hourly rate as an entrepreneur or solopreneur, or whatever it is you are, has to be about $200 an hour. If you do the math on the amount of time that I'm going to put in it and the takeaway that I hope to gain. And so it's pretty easy then to start saying, could I find somebody for $20 or $30 an hour on Upwork, or somebody that can manage those folks as an outside party to do that work and probably do it faster than I could do myself? I mean, most smart people can figure out how to do a WordPress website, but they could also find somebody who could do it for a fraction of what it would cost them in their effective hourly billable time.
I totally agree. So do you guys run as like the outsourced CMO or strategy, or do you guys help with the actual implementation? Like, are you doing websites and social media? Or
So our approach really is strategy first. So people hire us as, they may call it a strategist, they may call us an agency. We position ourselves as a fractional CMO. So they can to think of us as a trusted advisor. We are going to do strategy first. It is a very set engagement. Usually takes 30 to 45 days, but it gives us really the plan for where we're going, at least for the next year. Now, in most cases, 100% of the cases, somebody looks at that and says, this is awesome, who's going to do it? And in our particular case, we then also have an implementation arm to effectively, on a retainer basis, for as long as you feel like you're getting value, we're going to execute on the plan. We're going to re-strategize every quarter, and then obviously really look at where we're going year to year. Many of our clients have been with us for years, literally decades now.
Wow. Okay. And so you said the strategy runs for about 30 to 45 days. What happens after this? So does this fractional CMO stay on beyond that period, or like how does all of that work?
Yeah, I mean, really, I can't remember the last time we just did strategy with somebody and said, good luck. In many cases, even if they have a team, they want us to do ongoing support and ongoing advising and coaching even of that team. I mean, one of the challenges, a lot of business owners, they realize they need marketing help. They go out and hire some folks internally even to do social media or write content, but nobody's really giving that team any direction, quite frankly, because the owner typically doesn't really know how to. And so in some cases, we'll actually work to coach those people and get them really working on objectives that are going to really move the needle.
And so I take it the people delivering the strategy and the people delivering the implementation, is that your Duct Tape Marketing certified program? So they've gone through your certification? And
yeah, so we have an agency ourselves. So we do both. We train and certify consultants, but we typically always work with a handful of clients ourselves as an agency, because it's really where we learn. It's how we evolve tools, and so how we then are able to train the folks that get certified. So typically the way we will do is we'll have a lead consultant on our team that will do the strategy, and then that person will have an account manager on our team that will then be client facing and do a great deal of the work, manage any of our third party. We outsource various aspects to people that specialize in, say, paid campaigns and things. And so our account managers then manage that team of folks as well.
I mean, you've been in this game for a very long time. And so, like you said, I think 30 years. So what have been the biggest shifts? And importantly, what is the stuff that's stayed the same? That Jeff Bezos question, what's going to stay the same, right? Everybody talks about what's different, but what stays the same and what's radically shifted?
Yeah, so some of the obvious things. I mean, you go back 30 years, we were not using the internet. Certainly not using it in marketing. I think the CIA maybe was using it, but that was about it. And so those are the obvious things, right? Websites, email, social media. AI now is the new obvious thing that everybody's talking about. The thing I like to tell people that I think's changed the most it really impacts us as marketers. Those other things are all just platforms. We just have to figure out how to use them. The thing that's changed really the most since I've been in this business is how people buy, how they're able to choose the companies they want to do business with. That's changed dramatically. And that's the part that I think we have to really understand. But honestly, the fundamental thing we're here to do, get somebody to trust us enough that they want to exchange money for whatever it is that we're offering, that's never changed. It's just really the tools and platforms that we have that people get obsessed with. But using these tools to build trust and to communicate in a way that makes somebody want to become a customer, that I don't think will ever change.
Yeah, I totally agree. What have been the biggest kind of levers in terms of creating that trust? Because that is a huge element. I mean, you look up product reviews now and there's all sorts of spam that comes up on Google, and there's all of these ads and these review sites which are all just affiliate links and things like that. What are the biggest factors or tactics that you've used to really help people develop that trust?
Well, it's multi-layered. It isn't simply you had a review. There's no question that social proof's important. Reviews that are genuinely, authentically written are important. It doesn't mean people aren't tricked by other things as well. Just the depth of content and your willingness to share and teach people is important. Even really just demonstrating the fact that the New York Times or the local publication has either written about you or you've written in those publications. Those are all things that they kind of mentally are check boxes that people would make that believe you're trustworthy. Case studies that seem to prove that you got the result. Testimonials from happy customers. One of my favorites is genuinely customer-generated content. So, them doing a video for you or them posting on Facebook about what a great experience they had. Those are all things that add up to trust, but so does it the way you answer the phone. So does the way that your forms work on your website. So does the impact of when somebody's greeted at your place of business. It's an ongoing process of building trust, and any one of those steps can erode it greatly as well.
Yeah. I love your focus on the customer experience, because when a lot of people think about marketing, customer experience is something that the support folks do or that the customer service folks do. And when you visualize the one-page marketing plan, it's split up into 3 phases. There's the before, the during, the after. And a lot of people are questioned, like, why is there an after phase? I mean, after we've got the sale, that's the end of marketing, right? I mean, surely.
Right.
But that's really where the money is made, where the customer experience, because to me, the single most important metric in marketing, and to me, that's LTV, customer lifetime value. If you can get your customer lifetime value to be high because people stay for a long time, because they don't churn, because they refer people who are perfect customers for you, that changes everything. That changes how much you can spend to acquire a customer. It changes how easy it is to get a customer. So that to me is everything. LTV. I literally got a t-shirt made up with LTV just to remind me of that fact. And to me, that's really one of the most important metrics, and something that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to marketing. They're like, hey, that's a customer support thing, customer satisfaction and all of that.
That's right.
I like your focus on that. What was the turning point for you in really thinking about the customer experience as being so integral to the marketing process?
It's fairly intuitive. And the reason is I say that is because we're all customers. I mean, we all buy stuff. We all have experiences with companies, and we recognize when we've had a great experience. Most referrals come because somebody was surprised or their expectations were exceeded in having such a great experience. So to me, it's just always felt very intuitive. In fact, I'm one of those idiots that, if somebody is like, when I'm checking out or they're doing something and the person that's checking me out isn't like doing it the way I think a good experience would be, I will tell them that, hey, this would be a much better customer experience. If it doesn't always go over very well, but it's one of those things that just always really kind of shines a bright light for me.
Yeah, I love that. From a tools perspective, now we've obviously got AI is very hot, and there's lots of tools that make things easier. What's your take on that? What are you seeing that's working? What are you seeing that's not working? Is it overhyped? Is it something that part of your workflow? How are you thinking about it?
Yeah. Well, it's like every new thing that's come along. It's overhyped. If you go back to 2006 or 7 or 8 or so, and all of a sudden Twitter was just exploding, and that's all anybody could talk about, that you had to get on Twitter, and then nobody could explain why. They just said you had to. And you see a lot of that going on. There's no question. I mean, you've seen it, Allan, people make $5,000 a minute while you sleep with AI and all of that. Every time something new comes along, a whole new crop of those things come along. There's no question that AI is a game changer. It is an amazing productivity tool that for people that do what we do, if you're not marrying AI with a strategic approach, you will get passed up. because it just makes things so efficient. The beauty of it, there's a lot of people in marketing that are worried about it. But to me, the beauty is you can fail so badly using AI, like a lot of people will use, that people who are using it effectively, that take a strategic approach, are probably never going to be in more demand than they are right now to help people harness the usefulness. AI is not at a point where you can go to it and say, write me a blog post about X. It has to be taught. It has to come from your voice, your tone. It has to come from the strategy that you're trying to use. It is a tremendous assistant. It is a tremendous efficiency tool. We do a lot of content production with it, but we sort of reverse engineer it. I will record, say, a 20-minute video on a subject that I'm passionate about, that has my tone, has my point of view, says things the way I would say things. And we can take that transcript now to one of these tools and use that to educate the tool. Here's how John Jantsch talks. Here's his point of view about X. So now take that and turn that already good, useful content, turn that into a blog post or a LinkedIn post. Now you really can use the tool as an efficiency tool to create a much larger volume, but you still have to produce that high quality on-brand content for it.
Totally. So many times I see I'm on TikTok a little bit or Instagram, and there'll be this kid who says, I'm going to show you how to create 100 Instagram posts in 2 minutes. And a lot of people get excited by that. They're like, oh, wow, great. I don't have to do all of this content and all this. It can just do it for me. But when you have a look at who you're following on Instagram or TikTok or really any platform, you're usually following a human being with a personality.
Yeah.
They're usually doing some cool stuff, or they're teaching you some valuable things. You're generally not following these faceless accounts with just crappy motivational quotes or some cliched content or whatever, which is really what a lot of AI spits out, because cliches and generalities is really its core business, because it's trained on so much data and it's designed to spit out the most common phrases and words. So if you give it the sky is, blue often follows the sky is, and so it'll give you the most cliched, the most general content. So I think you're 100% right, but using those tools as a strategic research tool to help you summarize, to help you do things faster, better, cheaper, that's really the way that I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about a combine harvester, right? Before, farming used to be hugely labor intensive. You might have hundreds of people working a farm, and then the combine harvester comes along, and then it can do food much cheaper, much better with a lot less labor, but you still need farmers, you still need someone to figure out how to grow the crop, all of those sorts of things, but you can now produce better, faster, cheaper.
That's right.
And that's the way I'm thinking about AI and these kind of tools. They help you do stuff quicker, better, easier, cheaper, but they still require your creativity. They still require your storytelling. They still require your opinion and point of view. And I think that's really been something that people are glossing over. So yes, these tools are incredibly powerful, but they're no substitute for you and your experience, your stories, the value that you bring to the marketplace. That's
right. I always tell people our job is to provide context for these tools. And that's people that aren't doing that, people that don't get that idea, it's going to show. I mean, they're actually going to be penalized. I mean, they're already starting. These people that are writing 400 blog posts or, heaven forbid, an entire book in 10 minutes, the search engines and even the Amazons of the world are rejecting that content because it's clearly just garbage.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of previous success I've found online used to be related to technical trickery. Look, how can I get heaps of backlinks or the right SEO keywords or buy a whole bunch of followers and things like that? But what we're finding now is you can have a viral video even if you've got very few followers, because the algorithm now detects that, hey, lots of people are interested in this. They're watching right through or whatever. And so we're going to promote this video and let a lot of other people see it as well. So the algorithms are getting much better at weeding out this technical trickery and really finding things that people actually find valuable, that people share, that people watch right throughout. So I think it's more important than ever before to have value in your marketing rather than be reliant on kind of these technical tricks.
Well, and I think people are getting sick of the push a button and send out 1,000 LinkedIn connection requests. And so when you make a personal, genuine effort, it just shows and it really shines through. And for many people, they don't need 1,000 customers, they need 5. And so why not put the energy into building a true, authentic, engaging relationship with 5 instead of just spamming, 1,000 and getting nothing for it.
Yeah, totally. Back to working with agencies and working with external providers. I mean, every single day I hear from entrepreneurs and business owners, they're like, look, I work with this agency, I blew through $50,000. I got a shiny new logo and a cool looking website and 0 lead flow as a result. What are they doing wrong? Like, who's messing up? What's gone wrong? Because this is such a common story that I come across, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, it's tough because, business owners rarely got into business because they understood marketing. They got into business because they knew how to do a thing. They worked at a company that did that thing and they decided they could do it. And so they're very focused on the deliverable, the thing that the business does, the service it provides, the widget it builds. And so it's very easy to get, unfortunately, anybody can call themselves a marketing consultant or a marketing agency today and throw up a website and it looks like you're in business. So it's pretty easy to get bamboozled, hoodwinked. I don't know. What's a good Aussie term for that?
Both of those are good.
Okay. I thought it was like thrown off the side of the kangaroo or something I was waiting for. But anyway.
I don't have I'm sure there is a good word, but I can't think of it.
But at any rate, a lot of ways it's not their fault, but in some ways it is if they're kind of tricked by the shiny object, the person that just comes in and says, we're going to do this and we're going to do it overnight and you're going to have all this stuff. I mean, I get these pitches, I'm sure you do because you're in the agency world. We'll get you 65 appointments booked this week.
Yes.
It's like, appointments booked with who? For what? Right? So don't fall prey to that. Marketing is not a quick fix. There is no silver bullet. It starts with strategy and it is a never-ending long-term investment in your business. And so make a smart investment, do your due diligence, but don't fall prey to people that are promising the moon overnight.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It really underlining that it's not a silver bullet, it's not a magic trick, it's not a push button thing. I often say marketing is a process, not an event. A lot of people are like, cool, we've done the rebrand or we've launched the website or whatever else. And the way that you win at marketing is doing the boring stuff daily, weekly, monthly, and just reaping that compound interest that comes from creating those assets, from doing the boring stuff. Like when I have a look at the stuff that really works in our business, and I mean, we try all sorts of things. We're like a marketing mad scientist laboratory. Really, it's the basic boring stuff that you would think, stuff like ads that go to a landing page, stuff that like emails that go regularly to our list, really high quality content that's designed for our audience. So the stuff that we're doing is just really basic. There's nothing, no crazy trickery, there's no magic button or anything like that. But we reap that compound interest that comes from, just like when you're working out, you build that muscle, that comes from the increasing weights daily, weekly, monthly. That's how you get strong. That's how you get healthy. That's how you have a great relationship, just doing the normal common stuff for an uncommonly long time.
Yeah, and I would add one thing to that. We occasionally have customers that are like, we just want to set it and forget it. And I'm afraid that doesn't work either. You're constantly changing. The platforms are changing. Google's changing. What worked today might not work tomorrow. So you have to constantly stay vigilant, track your metrics, ask a lot of questions about why this is working, why this is not working, experiment. And that's really one of the values of having a long-term trusted partner.
Yeah. Where do you see a CMO fitting in versus, say, a marketing coordinator versus an agency? Sure. Where do you start? Like, so let's say I've got nothing. Yeah. Do you feel like you start with a CMO or a fractional CMO? Do you start with someone just implementing the basic stuff, the email marketing? Do you get an agency in? Where do you guys usually start?
Well, CMO may feel a bit like a fancy term for some of your listeners who maybe don't have a C anything. So really just think of it as somebody who's going to come in with a wealth of experience in other industries, which quite frankly is very valuable, that is going to take a look as a third party, not like in the weeds with you, is going to take a look at what you're doing, what you're not doing, is going to offer to interview your customers and really come up with a solid, here's our message, here's our brand promise that we're going to then take to the various channels. If that investment done correctly will pay far greater than just getting a few things working while you can. So you don't have to call it a fractional CMO, but certainly work with somebody who has the ability to help you develop a marketing strategy. It's even Better if they have a very proven framework or process that they can bring to you so that you get that kind of strategic result pretty quickly and effectively.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's pretty similar to what we do in our program as well. So no surprise, obviously we take a pretty similar approach. So we don't call them CMOs. We call them coaches or consultants. And again, they'll do very similar to what you said, is really take that strategic approach. They've got a wealth of experience across industries. That's so valuable to cross-pollinate what happens in different industries, because in some industries, subscription is just the common business model, whereas in other industries, billing by the hour, billing by the day is the only way things are done. And being able to cross-pollinate ideas and business models, we've had huge unlocks with clients where we just change a pricing model or a packaging model or whatever, and it unlocks a completely new market and a way of doing things. So I think that's incredibly valuable. So I totally agree. And one-page marketing plan is all about really how do we get our strategy right? And by strategy, is how we're going to deploy our scarce resources, our time, our money, our energy, really figuring out, okay, what's our message? What's our target market? What's the media we're going to use to reach people with? And then getting tactical, then hiring that marketing coordinator, or in your case, an agency who's actually going to implement that and see it become a reality.
Absolutely.
John, you've published tons of books now. How many books are you up to?
Well, not tons, but 7. Duct Tape Marketing was my first, and then the Referral Engine. My last book was called The Ultimate Marketing Engine, which is in some ways just an update or an evolution of how I see marketing. But they're all of them, strategy before tactics will be the first thing you hear about.
Yeah, totally. Well, I consider 7 to be tons. As someone who's just on the cusp of releasing book 2, I can tell you that 7 is tons. So 2 felt like tons.
You've done a great job of selling a ton of the one you have written. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks, John. Well, John, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Always is. How do people find out more about you, what you're doing? What's the next step that people should take in getting into your world?
Sure. Just really for what I've been doing the last couple decades, it can be found at ducttapemarketing.com. That's just DUCTTAPE marketing.com.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Always great to see you.